Hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of Harebrained Games, the Week in Games. This is a segment I do at least once a month, mostly, that covers basically news in the industry, checks in on how people are doing, and covers a variety of topics, both gaming related and sometimes not. How are you guys doing? I'm excited that the days are longer, though daylight savings did not, I don't know, I still miss it. But I will be glad if that would ever cease. But either way, here we are. So the days are getting longer, so I'm getting in 2 runs a day instead of 1, which I think I might be hitting critical mass there, or losing critical mass there. Still dealing with lots of stuff locally, away from board gaming, and so I haven't had the chance that I normally do to keep up with stuff, but definitely working on that. My advice to anyone is don't die. The probate and legal, road for whoever comes after you is very large. Just stay alive. Yeah. Anyway, I know that's not feasible for all of you, but hopefully for me, I hope your days are long on the land. Anyway, we're getting close to St. Paddy's Day. That's always a fun one for me, being with my Irish ancestry. Um, Although I'm not a heavy drinker, I don't do the ale thing, but I definitely like the Shamrock Shakes, as does pretty much everyone in town, it appears. And it's local con season, confound it. We just finished up with Game On last month. We've got conventions running next month, this month. It's just up into the summer. There's a lot of great conventions happening, and so time to be conventional. Let's do it. Let's move on to the news. In news, well, here's a couple things. Cyclades, an age-old game that I actually haven't played yet, despite having for so many years, is getting a brand new version. So, I don't know. That's happened quite a few times where I have a game that I just didn't get to, and now there's a new version of it, and I decide what to do. Sell it, keep it, upgrade it, put them by side, and let them duke it out. I don't know. I'll have to actually play the old one maybe and decide out what it's worth. In other news, because Catan is never ever at a loss for things to extend it and expand it, there's a new expansion coming out for Catan, unlike anything we've ever seen, called Soccer Fever. That's right. Every time you build a settlement or a city, you have a soccer match held in that city for rewards. It's a flicking game. It seems to be pretty quick. Is it gimmick? Is it genius? Is it madness? I don't know. I don't know that I will bite the bullet, but I'd love to hear from others and go like, yeah, of course, that makes sense. We sit down for a cerebral game of Catan. Let's have a dexterity flicking game break out while we're at it. Maybe that's a good juxtaposition. Chess boxing? Who knows? And there's that. Another news, Detective Rummy. I love the Mystery Rummy series done by Mike Fitzgerald, and it has a lot of, I don't know, it just takes Rummy and does some riffs on it that I think are really satisfying, particularly for my wife, as she likes playing that too. Detective Rummy is sort of a whole metagame above that takes place. Now, I've just bought it, I opened it, I started reading it. It was a little bit tricky in the manual, but I won't want to review it yet. But if anyone else has had a chance to take a look at it, please let me know whether I should zealously dive in or not. In sad news, or the second saddest news, my favorite go-to online gaming store is closing after decades in the business. They already closed once a few years ago, but now it looks like they're closing maybe for good, called Fun Again, which was the fastest, cheapest delivery service I ever had. These guys could get games to me in a mere matter of days, where others would take a mere matter of weeks. And so I'm kind of sad about that, but if you get a chance to check them out, I think they just upped it to 20% off your entire order. Today, they probably will, as time goes on and they're closing up, they might even have better deals. So anyway, if you have a chance, check out Fun Again and see what they can pull off. In other news, Istanbul, a game I enjoyed in the past and came out with other variants, now has a choosing right, because everybody needs a choosing right, a rolling right, a throwing right, a herbal, Orbital right. Anyway, I haven't dived into it. I'm still not sold on rolling rights, moving rights. I still haven't quite found one that I'm like, this is awesome. Even Twilight Inscription did not do it for me. But again, I have a predisposition to not necessarily liking them. If you do, this one might be for you. And in other news, I'm a sucker for, like, I really, really enjoy. I know there's a lot of board gaming review sites out there. I'm a sucker for some of the smaller ones that are just labors of love from families, like Our Family Plays Games, etc., where it's just a fun-loving bunch of people who just get together as a family, play games, record it, and put it out there for the world. I tend to be more, I don't know, I just like it. I just like that down-home, authentic mom and pop shop kind of feel that they have, and so I keep track of them pretty well. And a lot of what you find is that a lot of times people do it for about a year or two, and then they just kind of lose steam. The kids get a little older, or they find a different phase of life, or they've just run their course as far as like the advertising, and now they just want to play it. And so I keep track of it. And there's one channel I wanted to recommend called A Meeple Family, which is a great group of just fun loving, just a fun family. And about a few months ago, probably later last year, they just stopped. They were going at a nice pace, and they just flat out stopped. And usually when they flat out stop, there's either something that says, "Meh, we're moving on. Thanks, so long, and thanks for all the fish," which I think is great. I think that if you're not doing it for money and you're doing it for fun, and you start to lose your zeal, take a break. Like, your content was still there, people still get value of it, enjoy it. Like, just enjoy life. Don't, once it becomes a drain, what's the point? And so, but this was a little weird, and we finally got some information a couple weeks ago that the daughter in the Meeple family has, for the last 6 months, been going through just excruciatingly undiagnosed pain, unimaginable pain really level, and they had been taking her to, they counted 50 plus doctors, many clinics. The family had they stopped everything in their tracks to go help this young lady. They finally diagnosed it as some variant or riff on Lyme's disease and some other stuff, but unfortunately it has been just a devastating thing on this poor child. And so it's not news that's fun for board gaming, but because I have an affinity for people who just do board game channels for fun, and because I have a heart, I would like to ask you guys to keep her in, the family in your prayers, the way I'm going to continue to. So the last they checked, they were able to give her some treatments, but the treatments are pretty stark. And right now the child, from what I'm told, has no feeling below her knees, can't feel her arms, can't see, can't walk, can't speak clearly, and is just fighting like a trooper. So sometimes that perspective helps bring to light just how, in the big scheme of things, the perspective of how trivial board gamings are in comparison to life. So keep the Meeple family in your prayers, and I hope to have an update someday that things are going much better for them. But with that, let's get on to question of the week. So the last time we had a question, I was talking about rules, rule books and such, and I embarked on a quest to rewrite a companion for a board game that I really liked, but that had very difficult issues with people and the manual. They were not seeing eye to eye. And so I embarked on this journey to write a rules companion to like put my money where my mouth is. And so I wanted to, a couple guys asking, how's it going on that? Did you actually get it done? Did you quit halfway through? Because I'm known to do that. And no, I actually finished up the first rev of the rulebook companion, and I would say that for the most part it was very successful on two fronts. One, I believe it really did encapsulate the rules much better, albeit the fact that whereas the original rulebook for this game was 7-8 pages short, mine ended up 28, 29 pages of exhaustive rules. That is a learning experience in that I think on both extremes there are ways to cut back, to like distill in the middle, and I don't think I quite hit the middle, but I did get it out there, and I believe it was well received on Board Game Geek. A lot of people were able to use it and print it out and use it as a reference, although I did learn that as time goes by, you're going to get lots of people going, I think this isn't quite right, and so I have a queue of 3 big changes I need to make to this companion, this 28, 29, almost 30 page companion. And so, yes, I'm happy about it. On the other hand, it was a learning lesson. It is not easy to do a great rulebook. Even when you know how it should be, you still need to account for a great many things. And I'm satisfied with it for now, but I definitely learned and am going to continue to evolve it. And I think that was a good lesson for me, as someone on the outside trying to extract what I think was a good rulebook. And the things I learned is, one, take your time to think deeply about everything. 2, The most important thing is to get it in front of people's eyes as much as you can. Not your friends' eyes, not your best enemy's eyes, the world's eyes. Publishing that out and being able to say, here it is, chop it up into pieces, and tell me where it's not clear, you will get, like, we are in a golden age of being able to get feedback. And I think that that pattern that I suspected was the way that developers should be doing when they're making their games was valid, and I agree. I double down on that now that I've seen it. I got some tremendous positive feedback, some critiquing on things that just weren't clear to everybody the way they could be, and it was all it did was refine and make this rulebook companion better. Not because of my credit, but because of the group of people coming around going, let's invest in this. And so I double and triple down on publishers and whatever to get people's eyes on your rulebook ASAP. Yeah, that I'm certain. On the other hand, I'm more patient with people who are doing rulebooks because this game was probably one of the more simple war games that you'll play, and even that took a lot of my brain taxing and weeks of just reading and rereading and going over and fine-tuning this let alone a game of 10 times the complexity, and going, I have much more respect now for people, the rulebook writers at GMT. Yes, there's mistakes here and there, but on the overall picture, complication versus output, I'm even more amazed and patient than I was. I'm also less patient for bad rulebooks because I think it's clear that if you put in a focused effort and you do make this available to people and you do listen and you do partner with instead of hold people back, you will always be able to achieve at least a serviceable baseline of a rulebook, which means that when I see a bad rulebook now, I know it was poorly orchestrated, not just poorly written. And so on this one hand, maybe it's a zero-sum game where I'm more patient now and less patient, but that's kind of the learning lessons I have so far. I need to do a big update on the companion just so that I make sure that everything's as accurate as possible, and then I feel like I've done enough to be able to say I put my money where my mouth is. I gave it a shot. It is a hard endeavor, and if I ever do my own board game or whatever, it's going to be in my mind just how much effort and time and just proper process you need to put into a rule book of anything more than just the most simple game. Zombie Dice might not need it, but I'm sure a lot of other games could definitely use that vetting. Yeah, so anyway, I guess I answered my own question in this one. So let's move on to playing, reading, watching lately. Alright, what board games am I playing lately? Well, it's been a while. I'm still playing Downfall of Empires. One, because I wrote the companion for it. And two, because it's still a darn nice, fun game. But I have started to meter back on that. I got Banish the Snakes, which I did a review on. And that one's so quick to pull out, set up, and play and feel good about. Not being a Pandemic person, I love the idea. Don't love almost any of the games of it, for the most part. Banish the Snakes is just refreshing, as you all know. I'm also going to do a review of Rebuilding Seattle, which may be the most controversial one I've ever done, I think, which doesn't mean much, because honestly, I'm just doing this for fun. So, but I definitely have a different take than some of the glowing praise that has been heaped upon it. You'll notice I'm playing Flamecraft in the background. It's another game with amazing art that I kept on a shelf, and I may do a review on that one too. And finally, Inferno. Now that I've been playing lots of Nevsky online, I'm sort of branching out into some of the other Levian campaign games because there's going to be so many of them coming out. It's literally going to be the coin games series. There's now going to be Levian campaign game series, and I'm looking forward to it. Video games, I'm honestly not playing much. I don't have time now. I've had to pick up some extra work and deal with, again, legal probate issues and a variety of other things. So, haven't played much. I did buy Hogwarts Legacy, but I haven't done anything with it yet other than the very initial part of it, and so I don't really have any verdict on it. Anyone else played it? Anyone else like it? So let me know. As for books, a recommendation from one of my faithful viewers, and I appreciate you all, is A Wild at Heart, which I think I'm about halfway through that, and I really like it. It's just a real great sort of rethinking my life kind of thing. I got a book called Icarus Hunt from Timothy Zahn, who did like follow-up books on Star Wars, which so far I'm liking it. Only about 30 pages into it, and of course, who could live without a day of reading data-oriented design? Because as someone who did a lot of who's basically done decades of OOP, this is kind of an odd switch, and so I liked reading this. But I think this is a great way to sort of show how to reskew your mind in a different way. What am I watching? Well, things got interesting because I'm just all over the map. I finished Vikings Valhalla season 2, which I thought was okay. It's it was decent. It was decent. No complaints. I'm still trying to plow through Doctor Who. I'm on the next Doctor after David Tennant, and he's okay. Because he was in House of the Dragon in a very different and more menacing role, it was a little weird seeing them both side by side. I found a show called Perry Mason, and I thought, oh, that's cool, they redid Perry Mason. And I can tell you, they did not redo Perry Mason. They took thematic elements of the original Perry Mason and made an entirely different, darker, more noir version of it. And so if you don't think of it as Perry Mason, you're probably better off. But it intrigued me. And it was an 8-episode series, and I'm like finishing that one. So what are you guys watching? What should I be looking for? What awesome things should I be watching? Anyway, let's get to Tumbleweeds of Time. The year is 1973, and the famous birthdays are Dave Chappelle, was born in 1973. He's younger than me. Who isn't these days? Famous deaths. Lyndon B. Johnson passed away in 1973. He was a polarizing force. Popular slang of 1973 was Space Cadet, which was originally purportedly not a pejorative, but has seemed to have kind of switched to. It's even a game. Hey, Space Cadets. Oh, I took it off the shelves. It's there somewhere. Popular fad was streaking, which you will not catch me dead doing. Not even close. The popular pun of the day was, and this is NSFW, they used to be called jumpolines before your mom jumped on one back in 1973. That was the best pun I could come up with in history. I'm glad we've continued on. Top song was Let's Get It On by Marvin Gaye. No apparent relationship to the pun before us. The best sci-fi movie was Soylent Green. And the weirdest story was the AMC building story. In 1973, in anticipation of moving its modern new headquarters, the Army Material Command held a contest to name the building. The AMC's contest committee selected over 524 entries, and after carefully reviewing them all, the committee announced that the name of the new AMC building is the AMC Building. The winner, Francis Sikorsky, received a $100 prize for suggesting the name. And what was the popular board game? Well, let's find out. The popular board game was Perfection. That was the game that stressed the living snot out of me. Like, the timer's going, put all the pieces in place, because we needed to put more stress in kids' lives back then. Also, Escape from Colditz was an awesome game. And Tally Ho. Tally Ho is 50 years old? Tally Ho. That's a fun game even now. You just like, it's totally random, whatever, but dang. And finally, the most important question of all, how many aardvarks lived in the Bronx in 1973? And the answer is 0. So that's it for this week, month, year, whatever. Thanks again, and we'll see you next time on Hairbrain Games.